What's going on, guys? Today we're going to do another deep dive. This time it's All My Life by Faliing in Reverse. We're going to take a look at the actual video as well as the behind the scenes. Maybe we'll get some insights on how they made this thing. Let's get into it. All right, let's key this thing up. I'm going to do the best I can to try to keep both of these videos in sync for myself, but we're going to do what we can. All right, so we got All My Life, Faliing in Reverse. This is about a year since they made the original video. They did this one in 2024. There's a lot of cool things that they did here. Epitaph spent a lot of money on producing this thing. From the opening scene on the behind the scenes, I see they have basically it's called a scrim, a giant scrim up in the sky. That's basically to provide even or shaded lighting when you're outside. As you may know, the sun is a beast of a thing to compete with when it comes to filming and lighting. It's real hard to get really good light, even if you have what's called polarizers on your lens. If you can bring down the light a little bit and put some shade on the scene, that just makes things a little bit easier and makes the colors kind of like, I guess, pop a little bit because they're not blown out by the sun. So we have a big giant scrim with a raised boom crane. And another point too, before we really get into the production of the video, is that we see they actually built the entire town, which is kind of cool. There was a scene coming up, I think, in just a second, that has what's called jack stands that basically, or jack bars that basically hold up just the front face of all of these buildings. So the front face of the building is basically actually constructed like a real building with planks and all that kind of stuff, but it's just the front face of the building. But they did this entire scene, which is kind of cool. Again, they were holding no money back in trying to create this thing. So let's get into it. On the actual video, we see the scene of the old lady sleeping in the chair with a shotgun, which is just kind of funny. I think they did that just for fun. But let's go ahead and continue. Real quick though, I do want to say that as far as the old lady, we see like the costume design, um, really well done as far as costume design and what they call period costumes, getting it into the Old West. So let's go ahead and try to get into this thing. All right. And so we see Ronnie Radke come down on the flying horse. I guess he's supposed to be the angel. So one of the things that I noticed in the behind the scenes is that they actually used basically a essentially a crane system to bring the horse down, which is kind of cool. This is what we call an in-camera effect, as opposed to like a VFX shot. So they actually literally put a horse in the air on a crane and lowered it down. So the benefit of doing in-camera effects is that it looks more realistic. You don't have that like CGI look to it, and it can be a lot cheaper because you're actually, you know, if you have relatively cheap equipment like a crane and some straps, it's a lot cheaper to do that to bring a horse down as opposed to paying who knows what VFX guy, probably $50 to $75 an hour to edit the, the CGI and all that kind of stuff. So it looks a lot more real and it can be a lot cheaper as long as you can pull it off. There's not everything you can do can be pulled off in camera. So just cool. I thought it was cool that they lifted a probably how many 1,000-pound horse up into the air and then lowered it down. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, I've been high and low, I've been sober, I've been fighting, searching for my love in all the wrong places. Word up on the streets is I got a bad reputation. Yeah, I may have true blood, but that was true love.
I also want to mention too, real quick, the fact that they make these behind the scenes videos like sync up with the actual music videos is just really kind of cool. And you don't see that from a lot of like music videos or music productions where they do it behind the scenes in the exact same, like to sync with the other like actual videos. So that's kind of cool. So we're getting to the scene where he's walking up to the saloon or the bar and you see him flipping the gold coin at the man that's, I guess, homeless. Let me go ahead and play that again real quick for the behind the scenes. So they don't show like exactly how they did it, but I imagine it was just essentially like a coin, and then the VFX guy created some light coming out of it. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of the video. So we have this cool scene here with Ronnie Radke walking into an open, empty saloon. So of course, you know, when you're watching the music video, you assume, and they make you assume, that it's just full of people. But it's really kind of cool to see it right here in the behind the scenes that there was nobody in the saloon when they filmed his walk-in. You see him walking in with a white suit. Of course, in just a second, he changes over to the black suit. We have a bounce board or reflector on one side, which causes kind of that even soft lighting on one side. In fact, here in the studio, we have a soft box here and then one over here on the side, which basically does the same basic thing for the studio. But it helps to have, you know, basically soft lighting is more pleasing to the eye. It kind of gets rid of the imperfections in the face and just does a real smooth lighting over the face. So they tried to soften it up by bouncing it off of a whiteboard. And then you have like basically a jib or a camera, automated camera jib that is going to actually, a lot of this camera work I noticed from watching the behind the scenes is done by automated camera jib, which is just a computerized camera arm that basically moves. You program it where you want it to go, and then it moves to, you know, however you program it to go. So you get real complicated shots by using that kind of jib. We're going to get into the scene here in just 1 second of where he actually snaps his fingers or whatever he does, and then changes over to the black suit. So that's coming up. All right, cool. And so we're going to pause it right here where he is got the green screen behind him. So green screen has been around for a long time. In fact, they actually used blue screen in Hollywood more than they used green screen back in the day, just because it blended better for the sky. And the reason you use blue or green because it doesn't match with your reddish skin tones. And a quick side note, believe it or not, all skin tones, whether you know you're Asian, African American, or white or whatever, all skin tones have, as far as color grading, one single red pigment that no matter what your skin tone it is, always has a specific red pigment in it, which is kind of cool. But that yellow, or excuse me, the blue or the green is like so far away from that red pigment that it's easy to hit the what they call chroma key button to erase anything that's color, and your skin will be fine. It won't get erased. So that's why they use the blue and green. But in this case, they have the green screen behind him, and that way they can do whatever kind of magical effects or deleting anything behind him as he snaps his fingers and transforms. So kind of cool. Little, I don't want to say basic, but it's fundamental VFX stuff is just using a green screen in the background. All right, again, we keep going back to a shot where he's in the saloon by himself, whether he's fighting someone or doing green screen stuff. But it's interesting to me that they did this in basically two different shots. You have Ronnie Radke basically doing his thing in the saloon, and then you have all the extras doing their thing in the saloon. And so they did what's called compositing, and compositing is basically, you know, long story simplified, is that you take two things and then you blend them together in post-production. So they took the shot of all the people fighting around him, and then they took his shots and they just basically glued them over each other in post-production. So I just found it interesting that they shot all his stuff completely separate from the fight scenes around him. And by the way, I just want to say that at this point, there's so much information in the actual behind the scenes that we might as well just stick with the behind the scenes. So, All My Life, you can watch that main video, but we're just going to stick to the behind the scenes on this one, I think. All right, and so now we see the scene. We have one scene where someone is throwing another person over the table. Kind of cool stuff. And again, I also want to say the way that they built the inside of this saloon, where they actually crafted it and built it out, I think that was really cool. Lots of money there. But of course, you have your stunt double that is that is paid just to do stunts, that is being thrown onto this table. A lot of times these tables are just like basically kind of pre-cut underneath the table to make them break easily, because you don't want to throw a guy on, a standard sturdy table and then he breaks his back. You can also see in the behind the scenes here that they have basically a cushion underneath. Of course, you don't see any of that in the actual video, but they have probably a pre-cut table, and then you have a mat there to catch them as well. So that's how they do that. All right, real quick, I'm going to stop right here at these lights that they've got going on. I'm a huge lighting guy, in case you haven't figured it out. In case you haven't figured it out. So we have these lights, which are probably, I don't know, 6,000 watt, you know, over 1,000 watt lights. These things are mega blasters that are shining up into the sky. And then you got some from shining outside the windows, shining in. They're just really lighting this place up with light. And you have the smoke that they probably pumped in there with a smoke machine or fog machine, which causes basically um, obviously it's looks like gun smoke, but it also creates volume within your shot. So if you're producing a video, if you're making your own videos, by pumping a little bit of smoke or fog into the scene, just a subtle amount, it actually creates a little bit of depth in the light, makes it feel or look more three-dimensional or volumetric. So there's a tip there. But there's just so much light that they're pumping in this thing. It's insane. All right, that's a funny scene here. So we have the guy being slid across the table. And again, they're taking all these individual shots with like being thrown onto the table, this guy being slid across the bar, Roddy Radke walking through and all that kind of stuff. They're taking all these little pieces and they're just kind of gluing them together in post-production. And again, here on this scene where you see him sliding across the table, you see Ronnie Radke so you can get his his different shots like at his face or over his shoulder, whatever the case. You have a production guy standing up there on the table. I think that's kind of cool. Either it's a production guy or guy from the fight. I don't know. But there you see again the crane or the jib that's following the people going down the bar. That's kind of cool. And then you have a big key light, um, basically almost like a spotlight up in the sky that is bouncing light off of another, like basically a white bounce right behind the bar. So again, we're bouncing light around. We don't want direct light because that causes hard shadows. So they're bouncing a huge, really powerful light onto a white sheet, basically, or a whiteboard, and that is reflecting onto the scene. And that's basically how they broke that down. Let's go ahead and continue. Okay, another great crane jib shot. Okay, here's Jelly Roll. Okay, and then we have the scene where they sit down in the at the card table. Just basically what we call a three shot. A three shot is anytime you have three people in the same scene together. You see it over the shoulder by the electronic jib. That's an expensive camera. I don't know why I would guess that they would do anything different, but that's probably an Arri Alexa or something like that, something really high end. But they got over the shoulder shot. Anytime you have basically a conversation, especially 2 to 3 people, you're going to have over the shoulder to get the perspective of someone talking. So they probably in this shot, I'm not looking at the actual video, but I would imagine in the original video, they have a couple of different over the shoulder shots for the conversation or all the stuff that's going down. Set design is cool too. They got the table there with all the cards and the beer bottles. It's incredible. Whoever designed this set needs to get some kind of a Grammy or Emmy or something like that. Then you get the quick shot going from the table where the cards are up to Ronnie's face. So little follow shots like that or little detail shots, those are kind of cool to have. And then you can see in the background you have Jelly Roll. I just squinted my eyes because it just realized that the whole point of the card game was to get Jelly Roll out of prison. I didn't realize the story on that till literally just now, but that's cool.
some slack. I know you wanna get through to me, but I am my worst enemy.
Jelly Roll's bad dude, man.
I may have true blood, but that was true love. And like everywhere I look, every time I go right, everything goes wrong, and I self-destruct when I'm close to love.
I'm going to do a quick note on the behind the scenes coverage on this video. Now, I know they make these videos with the intention of doing a behind the scenes video, but you know, a lot of times on a behind the scenes video, you just have like one single camera, maybe two at the most. You have a single camera that's basically just kind of watching stuff from different angles. They really put a full production into the behind the scenes. They've got almost just as many cameras doing the behind the scenes as they do for the actual video, which that's impressive. Seeing him busting through the window or busting through the door. Okay, let's talk about this bank scene for a second. It's a pretty hefty slider rig that they've got here. It's got like 6 legs. That's impressive. A very wide base camera slider, so not something you get on Amazon for sure. Then they have a lantern up on the top. A Chinese lantern projects soft light in basically all directions. They're usually obviously used above, and they provide soft light for the entire room, really. Anything below it. So kind of cool there. But I want to say on this bank scene, you can see that they built this entire bank scene out of standard materials like wood and stuff, but you have to have carpenters come in and set designers. It's not like someone just sits there and says, hey, let's, put some flowers over here, or, maybe we'll put a, wall right here or something like that. They actually build small models of these sets. It's not like someone just says, hey, let's, paint a wall brown here. It's actually engineering level stuff to design these sets. So let's go ahead and continue with the bank robbery. Okay, so now we're getting into the kind of standoff scene in the middle of the street here. One thing to notice in the standoff scene is that it looks like it's getting a little bit, I guess, dark. It's not dark, obviously, but I think the sun's starting to set. Looking at the shadows, you really can't see any shadows because they have the street lit so well, properly, I should say. But just from the sky, it doesn't look like it's noon or anything. I think they probably did this at what's called golden hour, which is like basically an hour before sunset. That way the light is soft. But the scene just looks a little bit darker, and they may have intentionally shot this at this time because, of course, the next scene is like the nighttime scene. So they may have intentionally shot this part just before dusk. And then you have the bounce board. And in this case, it's actually not being used as a bounce. It's actually being used as a scrim to push the light through the sheet as opposed to bouncing it off the sheet. You're actually pushing the light through the sheet. Just another technique to offer some soft, large lighting. And that's probably a 4x4, probably, maybe 6x6. All right, let's keep on. So another cool thing I saw was that you had the light that was kind of shimmering on his chest and her chest. But you see the light shimmering. And of course, in the actual video, they amplify the LED like light thing, like on their face and the glow and all that kind of stuff. But they actually did a practical light, which practical light means something that's physically in the scene. They actually used a practical light or in-camera light on his chest. It's cheap to get an LED that does that, color thing. So they literally took an LED, put it on his chest, let it do its shimmer shine, and they just amplified it in post-production. Something that you might thought of was just VFX is actually a legit light, that he put on his chest. All right, cool. So now we're at the nighttime scene. I'm going to go back for just a second. I want to show just after the unicorn rainbow, we have the giant. See if I can get back to it. Come on. All right. So just after the dance scene, we see this giant LED panel. I mean, this thing is on a huge rig. It's a huge light, and they're using basically this one giant light, probably cranked way up, uh, to essentially light the whole scene below it, which, obviously this is done at nighttime. They're using that one giant light to kind of act as a, like a moon, essentially. They got essentially a moon light that they've created over the entire dance scene. So that's cool. All right. You see this guy here that's holding the camera rig. Um, that is basically it's like a wearable gimbal rig. So you got your whole assembly basically on your back, and that way it's suspended by a cable. You got that long bar that goes over his head, and then there's essentially a cable that's connected to the top of the camera rig or assembly. That way, a lot of these, if you're going handheld or walking around with the camera, these camera assemblies and the monitor and batteries and everything that's on the camera becomes so heavy that, and plus it makes it not stable if you don't have something supporting it. If you're just using your hands, it makes it like shaky. So they get so heavy that these camera guys, their backs are going to give out if they film all day trying to hold this heavy thing out like this. So they created a basically like a, what is it, Doc Ock from Spider-Man kind of thing that comes out over and holds the whole rig. So that's what that's for. And they're actually not too expensive. If you're getting into production for yourself, they're manageably priced. You can get one if you need one, but most people don't have heavy enough rigs to need them. You got the crane arm with the camera. There's your light again above. Jelly roll. And they're rigging the lady out with the bazooka. That's cool. This poor old lady, man. I don't know if she's like legit old lady or if that's just makeup. I don't know either way. It might just be a like actual like regular age lady, whatever that means, that they just made to look old. But I can imagine them doing like a really actual old lady and putting her, a bazooka on her shoulder. I can see them doing that. Got some green screen back there. So it looks like as the video closes, it looks like they actually had a real train built. And of course the very last scene, that was probably CG. I don't see why it wouldn't be CG, computer graphics, but it looks like they actually had an actual train out there, which again, if they're spending that much money, it probably is within budget to have them ship just the front end of a train, to the movie set. This right here, though, is a testament to whenever you put lots of money into a music video. Could me or you produce this exact music video with what you and I have right now? Probably not. The music video, if they hired me to make a music video for Falling Reverse or really anybody, it would not turn out like that. I don't have the VFX people. I don't have all those lights, and I definitely wouldn't build a set. I would have said, Ronnie Radke, let's go to my house, my backyard. I've got a couple of cameras and some lights. We'll just have you dancing around next to my pool or something like that. But this just shows whether it's Hollywood or music production videos, I don't want to say the importance, but I guess the difference that having money and using it well, spending it on good equipment and good people, the difference that it makes in the experience or the quality of a video. So I'm not saying you have to have all the money in the world, but if you know how to use it, it's a tool like anything else. If you have, a decent amount of money, then you can really create something badass that you couldn't make if you didn't have the money. So, that being the case, hey, I appreciate you guys coming over here and hanging out with me while we go over Falling in Reverses all my life. We're gonna keep this series continuing, and who knows what we got next. So just make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're interested in watching these videos. Go ahead and sign up for the membership, because we're going to put some more of this deep dive stuff into the membership. And that being the case, we'll see you guys next time. I'm pure Unfiltered Chaos.